It's the 77 WABC News Hour.
Talking the news with Noam Laden.
All the news you need to know with Joe Nolan, traffic, Justin Ellick, sports. And now,
Talking the news with Noam
on 77 WABC.
Yes, that's me, 5 o'clock. Good morning. It is Thursday, January 16th. Your forecast from the 77 WABC Weather Center. A mix of sun and clouds this morning. Could see some snow flurries this afternoon. The high going to be 31. Tonight and overnight, cloudy, low 26. And then Friday, sunshine, a little warmer, high 40. If you are walking out the door with us right now, it's 19, partly cloudy in Spring Valley up in Rockland County, 22 and clear in Brick over in New Jersey, and it's 25 and a couple clouds right outside our Midtown studios. Got a lot to get to as we work our way up. 6 o'clock hour, Sid and Friends in the morning. Did you watch President Biden's final speech to the nation last night from the Oval Office? He delivered a farewell address to the nation, 8 o'clock last night. Biden leaves the White House, of course, next Monday, and then as President Trump is sworn in at noon. Last night, he was warning about the rise of an oligarchy here in the U.S.
Today, an oligarchy is taking shape in America of extreme wealth, power, and influence that literally threatens our entire democracy, our basic rights and freedoms, and a fair shot for everyone to get ahead.
Yeah, it was a speech with a number of warnings. Another thing he warned about is the threat of AI, artificial intelligence.
But unless safeguards are in place, AI could spawn new threats to our rights, our way of life, to our privacy, how we work, and how we protect our nation. We must make sure AI is safe and trustworthy.
And he also spoke about disinformation on social media.
Americans are being buried under an avalanche of misinformation and disinformation. The free press is crumbling. Editors are disappearing. Social media is giving up on fact-checking. The truth is smothered by lies told for power and for profit.
So that's it. Final speech from the president last night from the White House. Of course, he'll leave on Monday. And one person who's made it very clear that they will not walk into the White House when President-elect Trump takes the oath is his daughter, Ivanka.
Ivanka Trump says she is staying away from Washington, D.C. for her father's second term. Appearing on Skinny Confidential's Him and Her Show podcast, she was pretty straightforward.
To some degree, I'm, at the center of the storm because my father is about to be president, but it's a very dark, negative business.
Ivanka Trump worked closely with her father during his first term, but describes the time as years of craziness. She said she hopes to make an impact in other areas of her life. I'm Liz Radabali for 77 WABC News.
WABC News Time 5:02. Let's go overseas. No doubt you saw Israel and Hamas making an agreement on a ceasefire in Gaza and a hostage deal. The news announced by the Prime Minister of Qatar yesterday.
The two belligerents in the Gaza Strip have reached a deal on the prisoner and the hostage swap.
Of course, it comes as the two sides been fighting for 15 months in the Gaza Strip after the Hamas attack on Israel in October of 2023. The deal is set to go in effect on Sunday. Includes Hamas releasing dozens of hostages in exchange for Palestinian prisoners. Delegations from the U.S., Egypt, and Qatar work to secure the end of the fighting and make this deal.
Well, we have faith, Becky, that brought us to this moment. And I think that's the most important part, that we are committed. We will continue to do everything we can, everything possible.
Yeah, and that Prime Minister of Qatar said the hard part will be holding these two sides to this deal because we've been here before.
And this deal will bring us peace, hopefully, at the end of it. I believe that it all depends on the parties of the agreement.
Everybody wants to take credit for making this deal happen, one of them being President Biden, says the ceasefire deal will see the release of some American hostages.
As at long last, I can announce a ceasefire and a hostage deal has been reached between Israel and Hamas.
So apparently the delegation, the American delegation that was involved in these latest talks to get this ceasefire done included people from the White House, President Biden administration, and also people from President-elect Donald Trump. So they worked together apparently to get this deal done.
More than 15 months of conflict that began with Hezbollah's brutal massacre on October the 7th More than 15 months of terror for the hostages, their families, the Israeli people. More than 15 months of suffering. Israel will negotiate the necessary arrangements to get phase 2, which is a permanent end of the war. Let me say it again, a permanent end of the war.
Let's hope so. Meanwhile, over at the State Department, everybody wants to take credit. Here's the spokesperson there, Matthew Miller.
We really do believe that a ceasefire unlocks the potential to massively surge humanitarian assistance into Gaza, and we have been working with humanitarian partners over the past few months to ensure that they are ready to surge that assistance as soon as the ceasefire is implemented.
The ceasefire deal that was signed off on was very similar to one that was pitched by the White House and the others involved back in May, with a few changes.
After the killing of Yahya Sinwar, something that the United States very much supported, that delayed negotiations for weeks, well over a month, because Hamas was not in any position to make decisions. On the Israeli side, over time, you've seen them meet their overall strategic objectives. And so once they had killed Yahya Sinwar, that really realized the last strategic objective they had.
Now the question, of course, is the fate of some of the American-Israeli hostages. One of them, Idan Alexander, who was an Israeli soldier at the time when he was taken over the border into Gaza. His father says the news about the hostages being released is bittersweet because his son will not be part of the first 33 that are let go.
I'm really happy about everybody, but on the other hand, we have 4 American hostages that were murdered.
Idan Alexander, of course, a 2023 Tenafly, New Jersey high school grad, was serving with the Israeli military when he was captured in that surprise attack. He has been seen recently on a Hamas video that was released last December pleading for a deal, which, of course, now has arrived.
Hopefully, the parents will get their loved ones for the proper burial, and we will get our loved ones to live our lives happily ever after.
And then we were hearing yesterday from Ruby Chen. He's the father of a U.S.-Israeli hostage that was killed during the October 7th attack.
I think there's a lot of positive energy. I think since the elections, the Trump effect has provided the negotiators extra motivation to get this done.
And Chen, as somebody who worried that his son was alive, said things need to move a whole lot more quickly than they have been.
So we need to try as much as possible push that the second phase with the release of the additional hostages.
WABC News Time 5:09. While Joe was doing the traffic there, just got word from Bibi Netanyahu, the Prime Minister of Israel, saying in an interview that he was giving that Hamas is already not holding up its side of this ceasefire deal. Now, the good part of this story is the negotiators are all still meeting, but as you can see, it's really all this stuff is so tentative. So the deal that was presented to Israel and Hamas appears to be similar to the ceasefire plan that was pitched to them last May. The deal consists of 3 phases. During the first phase, which would take place over 42 days, Hamas would release 33 women, children, hostages, ill, sick, people who are over 50 years old. For each woman or child hostage returned to Israel, Israel would release 30 Palestinian women and children from its prisons. Hamas would release all the hostages over 50 years of age, and Israel would release 30 Palestinian prisoners age 50 or older. It gets really complicated here. So the idea is every couple days they'll release a hostage, 3 hostages, and then the final hostages of the 33 will be released in late February. So this is going to go over a 42-day period. In exchange, also, into Gaza will go more aid. The second phase of the deal would release the Israeli male hostages and the beginning of the withdrawal of the Israeli Defense Forces from Gaza. And the third phase, and of course, first we have to get through the first phase because there's already problems this morning, but the third phase would be the rebuilding of Gaza by groups of, countries from across the world would go in and start rebuilding parts of Gaza that were destroyed during this war. So all this now apparently a little more up in the air, as Bibi Netanyahu just moments ago holding a press conference where he said that Hamas was already reneging on part of this agreement. But all three sides are still apparently in Qatar this morning. The negotiation's still going on. 5:11, while we're overseas, impeached South Korean President Yoon Suk-yeol is now under arrest. Reporter Janice Freyer reports it comes a few weeks after an attempt to detain him ended in a dramatic standoff at his home in Seoul.
Today, Yoon struck a deal for his surrender. He wasn't handcuffed, and he left in a presidential motorcade, not a police car. Yoon is being investigated for insurrection. It's a criminal charge, but he says the investigation and detention warrant are both illegal.
Yoon, you'll remember, impeached after his botched declaration of martial law. That was back in December. In a pre-recorded video, he said the law of the country has collapsed, and he would appear before the Corruption Investigation Office to prevent bloodshed.
Yoon Suk-yeol had been holed up at his residence in Seoul since being impeached last month after a short-lived declaration of martial law. Police surrounded the compound before dawn. Some of them cut through barbed wire or used ladders to climb over buses that have been parked as barriers.
Not everybody in South Korea hates Yoon, by the way. He still remains popular with some groups.
He still has a lot of support among South Korean conservatives. They've been showing up on the street outside his house almost every day. And a lot of them are waving American flags. They're wearing red ball hats and carrying signs that say, "Stop the steal." Constitutional court proceedings got underway this week where judges will decide whether Yoon should be formally removed as leader. Right now, he's only suspended. The crisis, though, has thrown South Korean politics into disarray. This is a country that's a key U.S. ally.
5:13, let's go from South Korea, bring it back home out to Southern California, where officials there are urging residents to stay alert as these high wind conditions, they remain severe, while these wildfires, some of them contained, of course, better than they were days ago, but are still raging this morning.
This fire is 23,713 acres with 19% containment, with 5,104 personnel assigned to the incident.
Los Angeles Fire Chief there, Kristen Crowley, giving an update on the Palisades fire, urging people to prioritize their safety as the danger has not yet passed. Now, yesterday, there were wind gusts up as 70 miles per hour in some of these parts. Of course, that didn't help with the firefighters.
Firefighters observed 30 to 40 mile per hour winds with low humidity. When you look at the aerial view of the Palisades fire, you may not be able to tell, but however, infrared flights last night indicated there are still numerous hot spots burning within the fire footprint.
Now, of course, a lot of what will take place in terms of why this started and how the L.A. firefighters and Southern California's firefighters fought this will be discussed once the flames are out. But one Los Angeles Fire Union president says he predicted this was all going to happen, and he's so upset that nobody listened to him.
If we cut one position, if we close one station, if we close one resource, the residents of Los Angeles are going to pay the ultimate sacrifice, and someone will die.
Yeah, that's Freddie Escobar. He's president of the United Firefighters of Los Angeles. Made the statement as the L.A. Fire Department Commission meeting weeks before the deadly L.A. fires erupted. Escobar broke down on CNN when he realized that nobody in the city was listening to him. The city recently cut the firefighting budget by nearly $20 million. We're going to get more into this story in a moment, but first, 5:15, let's head over to the 77 WABC Sports Desk, and here's Justin Alec.
Thank you, Noam Layden. Start with the NBA here in Philadelphia, where Jalen Brunson scored 16 of his 38 points in the fourth quarter and overtime, and Josh Hart had the 11th triple-double of his career, and the Knicks beat the 76ers 125-119 in overtime. Hart had 10 points, 17 rebounds, and 12 assists. Mikal Bridges scored 23 points, and OG Anunoby added 17 as the Knicks won a rematch of last year's first-round playoff series. Karl Anthony Towns missed the game with a right thumb sprain. After a 9-game winning streak in December, the Knicks had lost 5 of 7 before last night. They got 29 points off the bench, including 13 from Miles McBride and 10 from Precious Achiuwa. After missing a chance to win the game at the buzzer, the Knicks scored the first 8 points of overtime. Anunoby swooped in for a dunk, then Brunson added the next 6 on a three-pointer and 3 free throws. Up next for the Knicks, they'll host Minnesota tomorrow night. Out in Los Angeles, the Nets suffered an embarrassing margin of defeat at the hands of the Clippers, getting routed to the tune of a 126-67 final score. It's officially the worst loss in Nets history, eclipsing a 52-point defeat to Houston on October 18th of 1978. LA's largest lead was 64 points midway through the fourth quarter.
God, jeez.
Just they shouldn't have even been on the same court.
Sounds like they were playing like a high school team or something.
Yeah,
Jeez.
and LA emptied the bench, too. They were playing like, the second, third teams here. Jalen Wilson led the Nets with 16 points, and Daron Sharp had 12. They didn't even have a guy who scored over 20. And they were 30.5%, including 5 of 27 on three-pointers from the field. And with the loss, have now dropped 5 of their last 6. Coming up next for Brooklyn, they'll remain in Southern California to face the Lakers tomorrow night. And lastly, there was no local NHL action last night, but tonight the Devils play the Maple Leafs in Toronto at 7 p.m., followed by the Rangers in Utah at 9 p.m. That's your Sports Now, man. I'm Justin Ellick on 77 WABC.
Thank you very much, Justin. Oh, you know what, Justin, I wanted to ask you about?
Yeah.
Did you see this viral video of a fellow Eagles fan harassing this woman at a game last Sunday?
Yeah.
And did you see what happened to him?
Yeah.
He not only is he banned from the stadium for life,
yeah,
but he lost his job. They fired him from his job.
Do you know where he worked?
He worked at
a DEI firm.
Consulting firm.
Yeah, a DEI consulting firm, which is just ironic because he was, berating this woman. I mean, just saying the most vile things to her. But then it turns out the guy, her husband, who was filming the entire thing, was sent there by a GoFundMe page. His tickets were bought for. He films content at these games, and he posts it on social media. He's sort of like an influencer in that sense. So he is profiting off of this entire instance, and that's why he did not interject and defend his wife, was because it was for the content.
Yeah, if you didn't see this video, this Eagles fan, she was a Packers fan sitting in front of him, and this Eagle fan was calling her the C word, among other things. Mm-hmm. And it was was a little over the top. I would say it's
very over the top. No. I mean, I'm not minimizing what the Eagles fan did here by any means. He definitely deserves to never set foot in that stadium ever again. But there are two sides to every story.
Yeah, but he did live up to the reputation of some Eagles fans.
Some. Yeah. Key word there. Yeah. Some. Thank you very much. Thank you.
WABC News Time 5:20. Let's go back out to California, where a recall attempt targeting California Governor Gavin Newsom underway. Backers say his handling of the wildfires was the breaking point for them.
We're trying to make this nonpartisan as possible, address the issues, and say, he's not the guy. We need to bring someone in that can save California.
That's former Senate candidate James Bradley, who's one of the organizers, says they'll file papers in the next weeks. Their petition lays out a long list of grievances against the governor. They cite an increased cost of living, crime, homelessness, and the recent call for a special session to safeguard the state's progressive policies from the Trump administration.
We're getting so much support from extreme progressives. Now with Hollywood losing their homes, we've seen people leaving the state, businesses leaving the state. It went from a very business-friendly climate to there's this constant conflict.
Yeah, they're starting to begin to collect signatures for that recall effort. Meanwhile, Leonardo DiCaprio, one of a number of celebrities donating big-time money for wildfire relief. He's donated $1 million.
The actor made the announcement via social media on Wednesday, saying his donation will support both urgent needs and post-fire recovery efforts. At least 7 different organizations will receive parts of the $1 million to provide resources to first responders, residents, and animal shelters. DiCaprio joins several other stars pitching in to help Southern California recover, including Beyonce, Paris Hilton, Jennifer Garner, Jessica Alba, and others. I'm Mark Mayfield.
From Florida, let's go down to, or rather from California, let's go down to Florida's Space Coast. Blue Origin launching its New Glenn rocket from Florida's Space Coast on what was a highly anticipated first test flight.
5, 4, 1.
After scrubbing earlier attempts to get the massive 322-foot-tall rocket off the ground, the private aerospace company founded by Jeff Bezos finally recorded a success yesterday.
Engines continue to perform well. Now passing 1 minute 30 seconds into flight, passing Mach 1. New Glenn is now supersonic.
Yeah, Jeff Bezos on hand to watch from Mission Control as the New Glenn thundered into orbit overnight. While all that went well as planned, returning the first stage booster and landing its barge in the Atlantic, this was part of the process. That part failed in what some have dubbed a new era in American space flight. Blue Origin's New Glenn rocket roared into orbit overnight from Cape Canaveral. 5:23, there is a manhunt in Houston, Texas for a cop killer today. A sheriff's deputy who was part of a strike force shot and killed as he was serving a warrant yesterday.
This afternoon we lost a local hero.
That's Mayor John Whitmire, says the shooting happened in a strip center right around noon. Deputy Eddie Vargas was walking up to the gunman's pickup truck when he was shot in the head. The shooter then took off. Vargas leaves behind a wife and 3 kids. While we're in Texas, the Supreme Court deciding the fate of a Texas law which requires pornography websites to verify users' ages. Solicitor General Aaron Nielsen argued this is a historic precedent.
In our history, we have always said kids can't come and look at this stuff.
But opponents argued that if Texas law is allowed to stand, it will start a wave of laws that chill free speech. They say the law does not include privacy protections, and they argue that it sets up a permanent record that could be available to hackers. But the Texas Solicitor General, Aaron Nielsen, says the law is no different than the one that requires people to show their ID if they want to buy a dirty magazine.
Age verification today, however, is simple, safe, and common. We've tried content filtering for decades, and the problem has only gotten worse.
5:24, President-elect Trump's pick for Attorney General facing questions about the 2020 election and border security during her confirmation hearings yesterday. Democratic Senator Dick Durbin asking Pam Bondi if Trump lost the 2020 election.
President Biden is the president of the United States. He was duly sworn in, and he is the president of the United States. There was a peaceful transition of power. President Trump left office and was overwhelmingly elected in 2024.
Bondi, a former attorney general for Florida, defended Trump during his first impeachment and supported his claims of election fraud. Meanwhile, Republican Senator John Cornyn asked Bondi about border issues, including if Georgia nursing student Laken Riley would still be alive if Biden and Vice President Harris had secured the border.
I accept, of course, that Joe Biden is president of the United States, but what I can tell you is what I saw firsthand when I went to Pennsylvania as an advocate for the campaign. I was an advocate for the campaign, and I was on the ground in Pennsylvania, and I saw many things there. Senator, he should not have been in our country, and then Laken Riley would have been alive. And I don't think it's just Laken Riley. There are so many victims throughout our country.
Not too far away, Florida Senator Marco Rubio making his case to lead the State Department, be Secretary of State. The confirmation hearing for President-elect Trump's cabinet pick got underway yesterday.
So while America too often prioritizes the global order above our core national interests, other nations continue to act the way nations have always acted and always will, and what they perceive to be their best interest.
And former Texas Congressman John Ratcliffe, who was President-elect Trump's pick to head the CIA, getting grilled at a confirmation hearing yesterday. He promised to focus on threats coming across the southern border.
Transnational criminal organizations are flooding American communities with violence and deadly narcotics.
Some of those confirmation hearings will continue again this morning. 5:26. Nebraska Governor Jim Pillen began his State of the State yesterday by talking about the serious injuries he suffered last month in a horse riding accident.
I stand before you here today simply only by God's grace. But a life-giving moment like that I experienced can have the effect of clarifying one's sense of mission.
It was a wild scene around Christmas. He was bucked off a horse while riding with family members. He suffered a laceration to a spleen and needed to undergo invasive surgery that took a while. There was also a minor laceration on his kidney that will heal apparently on its own. But as you hear yesterday, he says he's just thankful to be alive.
WABC. It's the 77 WABC News Hour.
Talking the news with Noam Laden.
All the news you need to know with Joe Nolan, traffic, Justin Ellick, sports. And now,
Talking the news with Noam
on 77 WABC.
Yes, that's me, 5:35. Good morning. It is Thursday, January 16th. Your forecast from the 77 WABC Weather Center. A mix of sun and clouds today. We'll see some snow flurries likely this afternoon. Won't amount to much. High 31 tonight and overnight. Cloudy, low 26. And then Friday, sunshine, a little bit warmer. High 40. If you are walking out the door with us right now, thank you so much. 19 partly cloudy in Spring Valley up in Rockland County. 22 and clear in Brick over in New Jersey. And it's 25 and some broken clouds right outside our Midtown studios. We'll start this half hour out on Staten Island. A number of people have tipped me off to this story. If you live on Staten Island, maybe you've seen this. The dreaded speed cameras, of course, are everywhere across the city, and they'll tag you for these tickets for speeding. And it is the most annoying thing because sometimes it's just hard or almost impossible to drive the speed limit that's posted, like 20 or 25 miles per hour. So a group, we don't know who they are, has been taking plants, flowers, that kind of thing, little mini trees, and they've been putting them in front of the cameras to block their view of cars driving by. And they've been leaving behind notes. These are little fancy kind of invitation-like looking notes that say that these plants and flowers that are blocking these speed cameras on Staten Island are brought to you by the Staten Island Beautification Squad. I love that. So we don't know who these people are. We don't know what kind of fines they might face if cops catch up with them. The thought is, of course, there's a camera everywhere, so if police start to look for them, I imagine they'll be easy to find. But in the meantime, for most people on Staten Island, for that matter across the city, this group called the Staten Island Beautification Squad are heroes because they've been blocking these cameras from slapping these people with tickets for driving 26 miles per hour, that kind of thing, in a 25 mile per hour zone. Of course, we're trying to search one of these folks down to talk to them, and see what they have to say. And when they do, of course, we'll pass it on to you. WABC News Time 5:39. A former mayor of New York City now facing a really hefty fine.
A judge has ruled that ex-mayor Bill de Blasio must pay a $475,000 fine, the largest ever handed down by the New York City Conflict of Interest Board, an independent city watchdog agency that aims to hold elected officials to certain ethical standards. So why is de Blasio on the hook here? Well, it's because he used public funds to pay for a police security detail during his failed run for the White House prior to the 2020 election. The judge dismissed de Blasio's challenge of the ruling as perplexing and entirely baseless. James Flippin for 77 WABC News.
We now know who that disgraced Eagles fan was that was captured on video heckling a female Packers fan during last Sunday's Eagles game in Philadelphia. Here's a little bit of what it sounded like as Ryan Caldwell was just screaming at this woman. Allie Keller called her a dumb C, among other things.
After reviewing the play, the runner was short of the goal line.
Yeah, it's a little hard to make out, but he's leaning into this woman who is dressed in Packers gear and saying all kinds of horrible things to her. And so it didn't take long, like it normally does, to find out who this was. And his name is Ryan Caldwell. He was wearing an Eagles jacket, heckling this Packers fan back on January 12th during the Sunday game. Her fiance apparently filmed this entire altercation at the stands at Lincoln Financial Field. And so now the Eagles have banned him from all future football games. And he worked for a DEI-focused company. And so, of course, you can imagine what he said to this woman did not set well with them. And so they've now fired him from this company. He did put out a very long apology that I'm not going to read to you, but he says there's more to the story that's not out there. And he says he's sorry for what he did, but he wants you to know there's more to the story. And eventually we will hear from him about that other part of the story. 541. There are some local families, no doubt, who've been watching the ceasefire deal in Israel and Gaza very closely. One of them is Edon Alexander. He is the a 20-year-old who left Tenafly, New Jersey, where he went to high school, to go serve in the Israeli army and was captured on October 7th, 2023, and dragged into Gaza. Now, they haven't received any word that he'll be part of this initial release of hostages that's going to happen over the next 42 days or so.
Now it's even harder, because we are that close, and we believe, and hopefully they will come back home soon. All of them.
Yeah, so Alexander was seen on video back in November, and his parents were both pleased to see him alive, but of course sad to see that he was still being held captive. And so there's this 3-part ceasefire deal that is set to begin apparently on Sunday, where over a 42-day period, the Hamas will release 33 hostages, mostly sick, ill, and aged hostages. And then people like Idan Alexander, who was an Israeli soldier at the time that he was kidnapped, would likely be released in a second phase. And that second phase would include more Palestinian prisoners being released from Israeli jails and Israel pulling out of Gaza. In the Arab community in Patterson, they say they're watching this ceasefire deal closely as well.
Our community here has been really affected by that. We have a lot of people who live here and reside here that lost big numbers from their family there.
Yeah, so both the Palestinian and Israeli communities here in New York and around the tri-state say they are watching this all on pins and needles, and maybe rightly so, as we've been hearing just in the last 30 minutes or so. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu is saying that Hamas is already reneging on portions of this ceasefire deal that are set to take place on Sunday, but that he says all sides who are working on this deal are still in Qatar this morning trying to hammer out last details. 5:43, let's bring it back home. 2 children, including an infant, in critical condition after this fire broke out in a Brooklyn apartment building yesterday. The fire on a first-floor apartment on Bay 19th Street. This is between Benson Avenue and 86th Street. And when you talk to people who are in this building, they say the alarms went off. And they walked out into the hallway, and they couldn't believe how much black smoke they walked into.
You cannot see anything. It was like black. Everything was black. When I opened it, believe me, it was terrible. Cannot see anything, shouting, people crying.
The FDNY says a total of 6 firefighters, 10 civilians were injured, including that 5-year-old boy and his 5-month-old brother, who are in critical condition. Their father was also taken to a local hospital. He apparently is okay.
We were not wearing any shoe and socks, and it was like horrible, and we didn't know how to get out from the building.
Yeah, people raced out into the streets with really just whatever clothes they had on. Neighbors say the father home resting while his 2 children suffered smoke inhalation remain at Maimonides today.
Thank God we are safe, but still I'm just praying for my friends' kids here. They are in critical condition. They are on ventilator right now.
Yeah, we reached out to the FDNY earlier this morning to get an update on those 2 boys, but did not hear back from them. The cause of the fire, that remains under investigation. 5:45, let's head over to the 77 WABC Sports Desk and Justin Alec.
Thank you, Noam Al-Layden. Start here with the NBA out in Philadelphia, where Jalen Brunson scored 16 of his 38 points in the fourth quarter and overtime, and Josh Hart had the 11th triple-double of his career, and the Knicks beat the 76ers 125-119. Hart had 10 points, 17 rebounds, and 12 assists. Mikal Bridges scored 23 points, and OG Anunoby added 17 as the Knicks won a rematch of last year's first-round playoff series. Karl-Anthony Towns missed the game with a right thumb sprain. After a 9-game winning streak in December, the Knicks had lost 5 of 7 before last night. They got 29 points off the bench, including 13 from Miles McBride and 10 from Precious Achiuwa. After missing a chance to win the game at the buzzer, the Knicks scored the first 8 points of overtime, and Anunoby swooped in for a big dunk. Then Brunson added the next 6 on a 3-pointer and 3 free throws. Up next for the Knicks, they'll host Minnesota tomorrow night out in Los Angeles. The Nets suffered an embarrassing margin of defeat at the hands of the Clippers, getting routed to the tune of a 126-67 final score. It's officially the worst loss in Nets history, eclipsing a 52-point defeat to Houston on October 18th of 1978. LA's largest lead was 64 points midway through the fourth quarter.
1978, was that like when they were playing in Long Island?
Maybe.
Yeah.
I don't know. I wasn't around
Were they
then.
in New Jersey? Oh, no, maybe they were in New Jersey already at that point, yeah.
I got to check that out. I got to double check on that. But you could be right. I mean, 78, man, that's a long time ago.
And 67 points. I can't think of another time that I can remember where an NBA team only scored 67 points in a game.
I mean, that sounds like a college score almost a little bit.
Does,
You know what I'm saying? I mean, you see some of these NCAA tournament games ending in like 87 to 76 or something like that. I mean, they would have gotten outscored by like a mediocre college team.
Unbelievable.
That's Jersey, actually.
They were in Jersey in 78?
Yeah, those are the Kevin Lockery days when he was the coach.
Oh, okay.
Oh my God.
They might not even have the three-point line back then.
I don't think they did, actually.
It's close.
Yeah.
Right?
It's close.
I think that came in the 80s, didn't it?
Yeah. I might have.
Yeah, I remember Larry Bird hitting them in the 70s, I think. So
Okay, well, there you go.
before, I think so. It's right there. Right when they introduced the round ball.
Yeah, exactly.
And they took away the peach pit basket.
Yeah, they just implemented the net, exactly. Coming up next from Brooklyn, they'll remain in Southern California to face the Lakers tomorrow night. Lastly, no NHL action yesterday or last night, but tonight the Devils play the Maple Leafs in Toronto at 7 p.m., followed by the Rangers in Utah at 9 p.m. That's your Sports Now, man. I'm Justin Ellick on 77 WABC.
WABC News Time 5:49. Let's go out to Queens. We were telling you about this story yesterday when we came on the air. 55-year-old man, his body found wrapped in 2 bags inside an apartment in Kew Gardens. And police are questioning 2 people who recently moved into the building, trying to figure out exactly what took place. His neighbors just completely shocked by the crime.
I don't feel safe right now because I'm freaked out. Like, you think this is your neighbors, you think everything is fine, and I have kids.
City's medical examiner's office now working to determine the cause of death.
I never heard noises. I'm telling you, our block is relatively safe. This is a shock for everybody on this block.
He's always around, going and coming back all the time.
You'd call him and he'd come to fix whatever needed to be fixed. And I never had no problem with him. He was someone nice to talk to.
Yeah, they're talking about the victim who was the building's super, but we don't have any more details than that right now. 5:50, Mayor Adams detailing his new $650 million plan to help the homeless and mentally ill who are on New York City streets and in the subway system.
You see the same individuals over and over and over again. Our goal is to give them the trust they need to come inside.
Adams says his program, which is called Bridge to Home, New York City Health and Hospitals will offer this home-like environment to those with serious mental illness who will get treatment and when ready will be moved into permanent housing.
And so the new facility will provide a safe space for New Yorkers with mental illness to live, to heal, and be cared for.
The mayor says if this program works, it should reduce inpatient hospitalizations and ultimately decrease street homelessness. Users from TikTok are already moving away from TikTok because they're worried about this ban taking place on Sunday, and they're trying to find a new place to watch all those videos.
The Supreme Court seems likely to allow a law to stand that would ban the popular video app TikTok. So now there's been a mass migration to another Chinese-owned app, Xiaohongshu. On Tuesday, the video app, which means Little Red Book, often shortened to Red Note, claimed the top spot in Apple's U.S. App Store. It is one of China's largest social media platforms with 300 million users. Users also seem to be moving to another app owned by TikTok parent company ByteDance called Lemon 8. TikTok is going to be officially banned on the 19th. I'm Liz Radabali for 77 WABC News.
Of course, you're probably asking the question, well, if they're moving to another Chinese app, won't that app eventually be banned in the U.S. as well? And my guess is that would be the case, but we'll have to wait and see. 5:52, the MTA applauding Governor Hochul's series of proposals to try and make the subway system safer. MTA Chair Jan Oliver says the agency's been asking for officers on subway trains for a long time, and the governor's plan would put officers on all subway trains in the overnight hours.
Cops on trains, which the MTA and I have been asking for a while. That is a huge piece of news. Having also these physical barriers is also going to make the subway system safer.
Yeah, part of it is building these platform barriers, which they hope would greatly reduce the risk of someone getting shoved onto the tracks.
Somebody can position themselves in an area where they would have a really high level of confidence that no random act of violence pushing them could happen.
It was interesting to hear Jessica Tisch, the NYPD commissioner, talking about this plan yesterday. She said, okay, fine, put cops on subway cars. But she said the real problem is that they arrest these people who are committing the crimes only to find that they're back out on the streets. She says if you fix that problem, the other problems likely will go away. Over in New Jersey, Governor Phil Murphy getting a standing ovation during his State of the State earlier this week when he talked about a full-on school cell phone ban.
So today I am officially announcing my support for a new proposal that will direct school districts across New Jersey to adopt policies that ban cell phones for our K through 12 classrooms.
It was one of the few times Republicans and Democrats stood up together, and there are cell phone bans at a number of public schools across New Jersey already. One of them is Ramsey High School, where they actually just started doing this a couple weeks ago, and the students say they're down with it. They're okay with it.
I don't feel like it buzzing in my bag, so I feel like it's better for our mental health.
I feel like I need to be able to learn without having my phone on me all the time.
Yeah, I can understand that. Ramsey High spending about $30,000 to buy these individual lock pouches where the students put their phones at the beginning of the day and then they can reopen them at the end of the day. And when you talk to most students, it took a little while to get used to, but they say they just don't miss the phones that much during class.
It's definitely been kind of easier to focus in my classes and not worry about what I'm doing or what's going on my phone or outside of school.
Yeah, it seems obvious to me. Teachers already in these first couple weeks at Ramsey High say they've noticed a difference.
But I do feel like they're more focused on the lesson and taking notes, asking good questions, so they're following what's happening in the classroom.
Yeah, so that ban's going to spread statewide. While we're in New Jersey, first responders in Middle Township, Cape May County, being held as heroes for saving the life of a baby. A call came in where police were told about a 1-week-old baby girl who was unconscious and unresponsive, and this patrolman, Chris Ruddy, rushed to the scene to help the baby's mother, who was performing CPR, but nothing was working. And this officer, you always just amazed. I don't know why I'm always amazed, but the fact that these officers walk into these situations calm and coolly and can fix the situation. And with this infant, this 1-week-old baby, he raced in to help this child.
Let me see him. Please, 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 please. Please. She's not breathing, only when she cries. Not moving yet.
We have pulse.
Yeah, so police say Rudy had finished another round of CPR when EMTs arrived at the scene, and they were able to get that baby breathing again, and that child is okay today. Thank God for that officer, Officer Chris Rudy. And Rose Garone, she's from North Belmore, Long Island. She celebrated her 113th birthday this week at the Bel Air Nursing and Rehabilitation Center in North Belmar. She is a Holocaust survivor who was born in Poland, lived in Austria and Germany. She escaped the Nazis by moving to Shanghai, China. This is a woman who has a very interesting history. Then she moved to the U.S. in 1947 and opened up a knitting studio. And here she is, alive at 113.
113. You're kidding me. No, I'm not.
Her family says that they served chocolate cake at her birthday party, and she says chocolate cake is the reason she's still alive today.
What's your secret to the longevity?
Eat a lot of chocolate.
Yeah, thank God for that, because I eat a lot of it. Imagine, though, you're 86 years old and your mom is still around. So her 86-year-old daughter was part of this celebration yesterday.
It's fantastic. I've always relied on my mother, and I still can, which is very nice. She still asks me if there's anything she can do for me.
I love that. And here's the granddaughter.
I couldn't sleep last night. I was so excited for today. It's truly amazing.
Yeah, so happy birthday to Rose Garone at 113 years old.
Plan on flying? In order to board domestic flights, your driver's license or state-issued ID must be a real ID. Learn how to get your real ID today at tsa.gov/real ID or visit your local DMV.